Welcome to DC to Daylight. This is Aaron, amateur radio call sign N6ACA. Today we're going to be talking about N6ACA's cool tools. One of the things that I use quite a bit is a program called HamClock. But before that, let's talk about the first of the year, which it is right now. So it's 2026. One of the wonderful things about the holidays is my wife made this amazing Tom Cruise cake, and that was crazy delicious. So hopefully everybody had fun and ate way too much, and Tom Cruise definitely gives his thumbs up to my wife's execution of that. Hopefully you celebrated Christmas or some other holiday. And one of the things I got for Christmas was one of these little Goozy Zoo shortwave radios from my mother and sister-in-law. And so I've been playing around with that, and it's cool to have something really small that will do SSB and stuff. So this is great for travel, and if I have good results for it, I'll end up posting something later. New Year's Eve, I was able to activate POTA, and so I had a pretty good success. Tom Cruise definitely approves of that as well. Yeah, I got off early from work, luckily on New Year's Eve, and was able to go out to my local POTA park and activate right around the Zulu day. So I got 2 days of activation. Was able to make a QSO with one of our new club members. Recently got his general and has been operating under the remote ham radio youth network, and so I made a FT4 QSO on 20 meters with him to EN64, which I believe is their station in Chicago. So that was excellent. It's really great to engage youth and people that are eager to learn, and frankly I wish I had free resources to RHR because it's spendy if you start playing with it on the bigger stations. Without going further on the ham clock, we need to recognize sort of the OG granddaddy of wall clocks for showing world daylight conditions would be Geochron. They've been making a mechanical clock for decades now. I remember first seeing one at a ham radio outlet in Sunnyvale. I've seen it in many boardrooms and government agencies and emergency operations centers where they need to keep track of time across multiple time zones. Super cool. It's always been outside of my reach financially, even for some of the newer digital versions that they do that are 4K that plug in and are very similar to what we're doing, but outside of the price range of what I'm willing to pay. So HamClock is developed by the Clear Sky Institute. So we've got WB0OEW Elwood has created this initially, and there's an article in QST that describes the initial iteration of this, and you can come to this website and see more research if you'd like. But very cool tool. Takes a lot of data from out in the world and concatenates it into an area that you really have the ability to do tactical action on, getting out on the bands and sort of understanding the conditions. So on the main website here, you've got the information on how to download it, the revision changes, frequently asked questions, and a bunch of stuff related to the initial software. User guide on how to do some of the things that I'm going to show later, as well as how to install it on a Raspberry Pi. So all this stuff works as well. It should be noted that there's a lot of YouTube content about integrating this, and W6LG Jim had a great video on one of the commercial versions of this from Innovato, and really talked about a lot of the features. So we'll miss Jim. He was actually a great mentor to me. So he's recently become Silent Key, and we'll miss him, but keep watching the videos on his channel. His videos on operating and other things ham related have been very helpful to me. So what I've done within my own shack is I have set up a Raspberry Pi unit. So I had a Raspberry Pi Model 3A Plus that was originally bought for another project for a web SDR. And so I had it sitting around and I thought, okay, well, I've got this other TV that was broken that I was able to get working. Why not have a HamClock within my shack? So I got it loaded up based on some other instructions, but the reason I also chose this for other uses is, as compared to the smaller versions of the Raspberry Pi, the Zeros, it actually has a full HDMI connector and has a very low cost. So you can load this up and get it connected very cheaply. So the guide that I used to set mine up was from the Nashua Area Radio Society, N1FD. They've got a whole guide here, explains the sort of the scenario that they have in their shack, or actually the writer here, Martin, has written this up. Talks about how he set things up, blah blah blah, really cool things. But getting down to how to install it within Raspbian, which is the Raspberry Pi, a localized version of Ubuntu. And then the installation script, installation command line prompt issues. So how to go about doing that, how to set it up. They've done a better job than I could to explain that. But so I'll say just go to the link in this video for that. But basically, once you get all that done and get through the setup, you have a device that once you power it on will automatically connect to the internet and then display this. So it becomes a full appliance. It doesn't need a keyboard or mouse if you just have it connected to something on the wall. And so within my own shack, I'll bring up a picture. So I've got a Raspberry Pi mounted behind a Vizio TV that is not functional in certain areas, but it does enough to display a HDMI signal. So that powers on. The TV itself gives the USB power to the Raspberry Pi. It comes up, hooks to Wi-Fi, and then I've got the display. So since I don't have the keyboard or mouse connected to it, you need to either VNC into it to do any kind of software updates or tweak things, or you use the web interface to actually make some of the changes to the application, or you need to SSH into it to do any kind of major software upgrades if you can't do it through the UI. So it should be said also that there is another tool that I've seen. I haven't played around with it, but there is this Time Mapper UHD product that looks really cool that does a lot of similar types of things, showing a overall world map with time zones and daylight and nighttime areas where you can actually see the gray line going between day and night. And has a lot of DX hunting items, which is super cool, and can plot stuff from ADIF files as well. So the one neat thing is, as I mentioned, the HamClock actually presents itself out to the local area network using the domain. So it's like hamclock.local. And then it's on a specific port, and so if you go to that URL, you actually can view the actual HamClock, but also make changes. So this is the way that I normally configure it on a daily basis. The things that are interesting to me are the time and GMT, the date, sunspot number, and the solar flux index. Those two items are the best indicators of propagation for me personally. Some of the other things that it can be provided, I'll show in a second. Secondary to that is the on-air functionality, showing POTA and SOTA and other types of OTA activities, showing. So right here we can see that there's a bunch of folks on, 20 meter FT8, 15 meter SSB, 20 meter CW, another FT8, and so on and so forth, where you can see who's available, as well as the live spots on the individual band. So I have it set for my grid square, so Charlie Mike 97, averaging from PSK Reporter for 30 minutes. So we can see right now 10 meters is popping, 15 meters is going pretty good, 20 meters is great, and traffic on different bands. So if you were to look at like 6 meters, I'll track that, because that's one that being west of the Rockies, we don't really have as much 6 meter activity, but when we get an opening, it's super cool, and try to work that as much as possible, because I only can do 10 watts on 6 meters currently, so I don't really I don't get out as far as some of the other folks that have beams and all that. So for each of the individual windows, you have the ability to make a change. So with the left mouse button, you can click over and make configuration changes through the web interface. And so like here we can see we can do the RBN network. So that is for CW tracks the reverse beacon network, is what it's called. And so if you got CW activity and you're really more interested in that, you can switch to that and see what spots are available, as well as Whisper. So you can look from a certain area or two. So like if you're actually looking to see who is being heard from like a DXpedition area, that's another way to look at it instead of from your area. You can also add information on Aurora, contests, DXpeditions, what kind of weather is it at the DX location, different kinds of solar disturbances, the position of the moon, planetary K-index, the solar data observatory, as well as the solar wind and the VOACAP. One of the other major things that you can see is the local temperature and humidity, wind speed. All of those things are pulled from internet sources, not from like a local weather station. So if you have, if you're sitting in your shack and want to have a nice rag chew with someone, you can talk about your local weather conditions and all that, all displayed there. You can set the information on your local area, so you have DE being you, and DX being the remote location you're trying to work. So you can. So I am currently in Charlie Mike 97, Northern California. So I can set the DX location. So let's say if we want to set it to Australia, we can see what time the sunrise, so that's our sunrise, so 4 hours 57 minutes ago, when it sets, and information about what time, Latin Longe, how many miles away. That's the long path. Let's see if it switches to short path. So you can see a lot of the information there. So if you have it set up in the way that I do, where it's just an appliance on the wall, you need to change this kind of information remotely over the network. So the other things that, as I've shown you, you can go through and look at the long-term data. If you actually click in the areas through the web interface, it's a little more clinky, so you need to sort of figure out what where you're clicking gives you different things, so you don't always have the best results depending on where you're setting. There we go. So let's say we do the Aurora, and then like some of the really cool things about like solar wind and the X-ray and the solar data observatory. So if we do that and do OK, so some of these things are not necessary. If you don't understand them, they're not incredibly helpful, and you can filter them out. If you have a better understanding of solar conditions and how they affect propagation, you might be more interested in seeing that, because it would actually help you with sort of figuring out the conditions of the day. one of the things I found this helpful is explaining ionospheric propagation to people that don't necessarily understand ham radio or HF communications in general. So you can use this to show, okay, well, these are the conditions between, my location and Australia, and these are the conditions that are happening, in the atmosphere and within the sun that affect those changes. As well as when I sort of just my shack is in my garage. When I walk through, I can see the information on the sunspot number and SFI. And if it suddenly spikes, then maybe I'm just going to turn my radio on and spin around and listen. Or separately, I've got the on the air stuff there. So if I see stations, I can easily work. So from my location, based on my antenna, I have great pop propagation to Arizona and Washington and British Columbia and Idaho on 20 meters during the middle of the afternoon. So if I am off work and I'm in the garage, right after my kids get out of school or whatever, and I see, well, geez, people are activating POTA, and I can see Washington's up or things of that nature. Power on the rig and spin the dial and see if I can work them. Sometimes based on weather conditions, it works out pretty well. And so when you sort of start tracking this on a regular basis, you have an understanding of the propagation in your area and what the baseline is, and then what kind of changes can allow for better operating conditions, or when maybe you should be doing other things because you've got coronal mass ejections and all the bands are crap. So that is one of the things that I've found very helpful in my operating, and I really hope that you get a chance to set one of these up. It's a really cheap way to have access to tons and tons of information without having to have other web pages up on computers or on smartphones, that it's just there within your shack and it's part of that living environment. Again, I'm Aaron, N6ACA. I'm going to say 73, and thanks for watching.